Hey all, Alex here at your home of the Music Deep Dive, and today we'll be doing a review of the 2020 book by Ellen Carroll DuBois, Suffrage, Women's Long Battle for the Vote. Ellen Carroll DuBois, born the 11th of March 1947 in Baltimore, Maryland. A history student who got her doctorate in the subject from Northwestern University, DuBois holds a foundational place in the subject of women's history because it was still a rather nascent subject in the early to mid-1970s when she was emerging onto the scene, if you will. She taught at the University of Buffalo and later UCLA for a total of almost 50 years, during which time she was engrossed in research that manifested itself in a few published textbooks over the years. Suffrage is DuBois's first attempt at a popular history, in many ways a summation of her whole career, since she worked on it and published it right as she was retiring and immediately after her retirement from academia. So it is a bit unfortunate then for me to say that I was hoping for more when I read this, although what we get here is not bad. Really, the struggle with this book is how much it is trying to grapple with in just a 300-page narrative. There just isn't enough space here to contain the stories that are trying to be presented or the personalities that are being described here. So many major figures are centered in this story and clearly have enough interesting characteristics to warrant individual biographies, maybe even individual chapters, but with the exception of someone as major of a figure as like Susan B. Anthony, there just isn't really enough time devoted to anyone in particular because it's a rapid fire transition from one personality, one major event, over to the next. Now, I do still find this interesting because there are a number of people mentioned in these pages who I barely know anything about, and even the figures who I've heard of, like Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Ida B. Wells, etc. I've never sat down to read a biography on any of them, so in that sense, it was still informational. It's just, again, it feels a bit surface level. Now, for perspective, this is the history of the suffrage movement specifically, which lasts for over 70 years and several different generations or waves, much in the way that we kind of think of modern day feminism as coming in waves. And this book allows the readers to really dip their toes into these different areas without necessarily feeling engrossed in anything in particular. And now this is where I have to pull myself back and evaluate the book on what it actually is rather than what I was hoping it would be, because it can be very easy to do the former rather than the latter. This is very textbook-like in its structure. It is very broad in the subjects it discusses while lacking serious depth. That is hardly a bad thing, if I'm being honest, and what we get is well-told history, each character coming through in their short time on the page with clear personality, and the nuances of the actual activism and organization is very interesting. Certainly the parts of this story that I had the least context for going in, so that was very interesting to read about. About the only part of this story that I'm not entirely sure was well handled beyond just being surface level or whatever, was the tension between civil rights activists and suffrage activists during the passage of the 15th Amendment, where certain suffragettes ended up kind of leaning on racist talking points as a way to earn support to their cause, because in their eyes, if African Americans were given the right to vote as part of this amendment and women weren't, women were never going to win that right at all. Now, there is complexity to the situation that is worth noting, but DuBois doesn't spend a lot of time talking about it, nor are those activists taken severely to task for how they behaved. It's sort of presented as a consequence of an unfortunate reality, which is true. However, it feels glossed over, and I think there are some kind of moral talking points that could have been hit on a bit more. But this all might sound very negative, and I would rather not give people the impression that this is poorly written or a subpar history. You just have to understand how really entry level of a history this is truly intended to be. I did learn things from it for sure, and it serves as a launching pad to other resources, so if you are ignorant of the nitty-gritty of this sect of American history, like frankly I was, it is worth your time. If you're already pretty well exposed to this side of history, though, from prior readings, I don't think there's much reason to peruse this volume. And that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, more reviews are to come. Tell a friend as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time right here at your home of the Music Deep